Alright, 4-4 dispensing facilities, 441 refueler, tank, truck, fill standing mission. The turnaround times will establish the number of fill position with the two beginning with the minimum service headquarters can assist in determining the number C. The facility plate number 0607 with great design guidance for the Department of Standards Design AW78 2429, the type 4 and 5, provided with a separate loading system in each of the grade type of the fuel to be handled. 441 general criteria: locate the refueler loading facilities close to the practicable permissible location aircraft to be fueled, but not less than 50 feet from the tanks of the building, the roads, overhead power lines, padded mounted transformers, and property lines. For aircraft drafting direct fueling system, the fueling supply piping of the refueler of the truck loading facility may be spur of the extension of the system, the constructed with the same material as the system. In this case, the filter separators are not required since the provided as part of the aircraft direct fueling system. The filterization in the downstream of the pump house and spur connects to the prior to the filterization of equipment. The filtered lateral is required. Lateral is required. Arrange fuel loading equipment at one or more of the concrete islands configured with the fueling on one side only, with more direction traffic approaching loading connections on the refueler located with the drive side, with more of the one islands required between the volume and the number of the fuel grades as be handled. Arrange with a parallel fashion with approximately 15 feet between the adjacent sides. Arrange the island approach to allow forward motion of the tracks and all times of ample room for the turning of the egress entrance of the emergency response vehicles. Provide contaminant each area, each of the truck loading position consisting of the impermeable retention control drain system leading to the concrete remote spill contamination. Provide with the contaminated air consisting of the island space between the islands on each side of the outer islands. The concrete pitch with the minimum 1% towards the catch basin, the trench drains. Designed for the contamination area in accordance with the UFC006 federal state local regulations. Do not use asphalt with spill contamination or the maximum slope of the pavement when the truck movement of the parking out of the area should not exceed 2% except for the roll over the curb. The roll over the curb provided with the some of the vertical extension of the existing grade should not exceed the 8% of the horizontal length of the curb, and the direction of the truck movement should not be less than 15 feet of the roll over the curb. Should not be aligned with the perpendicular with the direction of the truck of the movement. Anti-tank to add tanker car loading areas paved with the contaminated with the concrete, otherwise provided with a contaminant for area extending 5 feet outside of each outer rail, extending the longitude with an extending longitudinal of 15 feet. Each way from the center of each of the loading positions, slowly pave the area spill contamination system as described previously in item D. Provide concrete remote spill contamination system for each of the contaminated areas. Design remote spill contamination system in accordance with the UFC 12001 federal state local regulations. Provide remote spill contamination with the capacity greater than either the volume of the largest refueler to be loaded with the runoff with the rainfall intensity equal to 5-year expectancy for 1 hour duration. Provide a lockable knife gate valve with the indicator post located outside incurrence enclosure within an area that was made safely accessible during the prior to the valve of the draining system shall be locable, will be normally closed to allow the containment during the fueling operations, which can be opened to the drain area with the necessary tank trucks can be large as 10 gallons in capacity. The canopy is installed, reducing the size of the rainfall of the actuating allow only a wind blowing rain. Considering combining the remote spill contamination system with other spill contamination systems on site, except the tank containment systems, however, the tank level of the contamination in each of the containment areas are considered. G. The construction of the drain pipe between the containment area, the control on concrete remote spill contaminant system between the remote and spill contamination system, lockable knife gate valve with the petroleum resistant, fire resistant, impermeable materials. Do not use clay, concrete, fiberglass, or plastic piping materials. Loading an aircraft refueler truck at the bottom and loading only. Design the system and the delivery non-flow rate of the 600 gallons per minute with a pressure relief valve nozzle. Pressure with the 35 psi G's and psi for the gallons per system should be taken into consideration. Pressure of the flow setting to prevent damage to the bottom loader. Contact service headquarters for the further direction. I. Provide a canopy protection for the elements of the fixed facilities, assets, equipment, and per the canopies prefigured the chapter. Provided the canopy to preclude with the rail of the containment area with the requirements listed with the canopies paragraph of the chapter error met. Design electrical system apparatus for the use of Class 1 Division 1 Group D. Group D has its areas in accordance with the NFPA 70 regardless of the type of the fuel dispensed. Provide egress and entrance for the emergency response vehicle. The egress and entrance routes needed to be large enough to allow both the trucks and emergency vehicles leaving the entire facility. The JP8 provided with the capable of refueling the GB8 fueler truck. The operating storage described in the paragraph of the defueling return to the bulk system in this chapter. All right, 4412 equipment required. Provided separate piping and pumps loading connections controls for each of the different type of the grade fuel. Provide individual isolation valve for each of the filling connection, including the following equipment for each of the refueler and truck and fill stand. Self closing emergency valve with the 165 to fill the Fahrenheit fusible link. These valves are not required to permitted on Air Force projects. Provided the manual isolation valve to isolate the equipment for the service. Provide thermal relief valves around the isolation check valves and relief excess pressure for the cause of the thermal expansion of the liquid trap between the shutoff points. See facility place 023, 024, 025, and 026. Provide the filter separator and fill stand supplied with the aircraft direct fueling system. The non-ferrous branch of the connection with the downstream issue filter separator. E positive displacement turbine meter with a rate of the capacity equal to the maximum flow of the load station following accessories and custody the transfer point combination ticker point of the large number 0 the reset counter for the self-enclosing weatherproof cover of the ticker printer not required for the Army and Air Force projects pole. The transmitter with the photoelectric high-resolution type of required for the projects employing electronic data acquisition systems. Temperature compensation if in custody of the transfer point. Provide relaxation tank with the piping configuration with sufficient capacity to retain maximum flow of the loading station for 30 seconds from the time of the fuel leave to the last piece of the filtration of equipment the fuel reaching from the load of the pressure fueling nozzle. Applies only to JP5 and other fuels which do not have static dissipation additives that provide the conductive level greater than 50 picosiemens per meter. Mechanical loading on the preferred device unlubricated swivel sstainless steel counterbalance mechanical loading arm and an option approved with the service headquarters using the loading hose approximately 10 feet or long 3 or 4 inches of normal diameter meeting the requirements of the EL standard 1529 as spiral protective device slinky. It may be illustrated with around the hose. The hose is going to cover the hose and try to protect the ultraviolet damage. Installed non-lubricated stainless steel is inline repairable swivel. The SNA AS 58077 pressure refueling nozzle. Size and type of compatible truck loading connections coated with the product. The use of more than type of the fuel is used at the ICE fill stand. Connect the pressure refueling nozzle with the loading arm, the hose with the dry brake quick disconnections. The sample outlet 1/4 inch diameter sample point with the pro ball valve disconnecting at each of the position of each of the product line. Make provision to start and stop pumps. The start and stop pump controls at each of the position, including the pump status indicator light on the control box. A hydraulic operated diaphragm control valve with the following functions that can be married taken to the select equipment which is compatible with electronic mechanical meter stacks. One adjustable rate for the flow control is fill stand on the branch line for the aircraft direct fueling system or on a multiple pump arrangement which could result in exceeding 600 gallons. Pressure regulating, maintaining the desired upstream downstream pressures, adjusting time delay and opening and closing speed control to control the valve to close in the event of the diaphragm valve. Thermal relief of the valve relief is excessive pressures caused by the thermal expansion of liquid trap between the shutoff points position. Indicator the solenoid shut off the interlock with the solenoid with electrical high level shut off ground verification dead man control. L provided with each of the fill position with electronic high level shut off with the ground verification dead man control system. The system shall be in safe and self-checking interlocking system with either the solenoid operated with the truck loading diaphragm control valve with the pump so that the valve cannot be remain open and pump cannot operate with the tank truck compartment is full, the tanker truck is not grounded, or the dead man is released. Ensure the system is compatible with both electronic fiber optic sensors. Manual keypad bypass required. The parallel effort beyond the project scope to ensure that all the trucks using the facility have compatible connections. If the facility has the trucks that do not have fixed probes, use a cane probe instead. This is a unit and option of the Army job projects for the only tactical refuelers. Contact the service headquarters for the guidance. And provide emergency fuel shutoff push buttons for the fill stand multiple use position. Emergency fuel shutoff button is then required for the each of the position along the route to personal ingress. The egress between 100 and 200 feet from the fill stand is designed for each of the such mirror activation and the emergency stop with the shutoff of the fueling and the pump house with the pump pad. And the lowest low intensity of the area lighting in accordance with the API RP 540 which permit the visibility of equipment for control during the night operations. Refer to Chapter 2 for the unified facility criteria, information, vapor collection, recovery, the disposal system. P on station of the pumps if the pumps are dedicated to fill stands provided with light and indicated on and off status. The ground reel and ground plate with detailed with the standard design AW782429 Type 3 multiple connections. are provided with a basket strainer upstream of the pumps and meters where the filter separator is not provided with a load rack. Pressure gauge, maintenance drains, vents, provided with a hydraulic shock suppressor. W with the JP8 system to allow defueling refuelers. Trucks provided with a return to bulk station provided with a military standard MS24484 aircraft refueling adapter to a position upstream recipient filterization accepting location included the return line of the truck fill stand, the return line of the hydrant hose of the truck, the checkout station, the hydrant line at the panographic flush station, productive recovery tank, or at a truck offloading station provided with the SPR connection with the per group of the fill stand with the truck offloading station if the product recovery tank do not bypass the level control valve. X the meter providing the connection to the less procedure provides an alternative. 442 aircraft directing fueling system. All right, 442 aircraft direct fueling system. Aircraft direct fueling system, a fuel system that delivers fuel directly to the aircraft into an aircraft requiring additional fuel hardware such as the hydrant hose truck, the panographic hydrant hose cart. This may be Type 3 hydrant system, the Department of Defense standard AW782428. Portable pantographs, hydrant servicing truck carts. They may be hard to the pipe with fixed pantographs, which usually have the case of Type 5 and then shelter fueling. The Department of Design AW782429. Type 4 hot fueling station, the Department of Standard Design AW748 2429 for individual components vary slightly between the various aircraft fueling system. Basic philosophy of the system configured in loop with no ends. The valve for the all surface of the loop is made up of the supply returning piping and the fuel flushing of the back pressure with the control valve maintained with the constant pressure on the supply side piping the relief. The excessive fuel pump not taken on by the aircraft with the returning portion of the pipe in the back of the tank. The leading pump turned off, the automatically dropping the system pressure manually by any off in the switch at each of the directing fuel station. A ventry in the supply piping senses the flow rate of the loop of the works in conjunction with the ventry into the return loop. Depending on the flow demand with the return of the ventry, turns on and off the additional pumps as required. In for return is below the preset limitation indicates if the fuel is being dispensed with a low fuel flow is sensed and the additional pumps are turned on at one time until a steady flow condition is reached. Conversely, the report return flow is about set and limited indication less fuel being dispensed at the return of the ventry sense of the high level condition turn of the pumps off them one time and ultras unit until the system is brought to the rest of the continued circulation of the fuel provides a self-cleaning action for the preparing properly adjusted, but the system is able to more closely match the very fuel filling rates of the aircraft. Provides smooth operation helps eliminate destructive surge pressure spikes in order to ensure the highest quality fuel contact. The carbon seal is limited to the about absolute minimum prior to the filterization, not permitted downstream of the issue the filter separators unless the specification authorized in the service headquarters. 4421 General requirements: installing aircraft fueling system on specifically authorized service headquarters. Major Com assisting with determining the number type of stations required by the activity, locating hydrant pits and aircraft parking ramps, construction new facilities only for the issuing of aviation turbine fuel through the pressurized refueling hoses, nozzles, circuit fueling nozzles, locating fuel stations at the edge of the aircraft, parking on apron flight taxiways or out at the apron parking spots with large frame aircraft size and the configuration of these systems based on the type of the aircraft to be refueled, aircraft fuel facility, the number of the types of aircraft to be simultaneously refueled. A parking plan should be approved before proceeding with the hydrant pit layout design. Some of the aircraft says the fighter, some helicopters may be fueled with engines running seat facility plates of the 08, 09, 010 for the additional Air Force project of the air for the AFH 32 1084. 442 fixed wing small frame aircraft locate aircraft during the direct fuel stations. The small frame aircraft carry the aircraft patrol aircraft fighter aircraft small transport ports along with the edge of the designated access ramps, aprons, fueling lanes for the easy access for the aircraft to close the normal taxi routes, particularly while they are still meeting the center line clearance requirements provided with the facilities fueling aircraft. The engine support, the equipment running of these systems are installed with the minimum mission dictates the continuing need for the rapid turnaround without shutting the engines down or located with the permit quick return to the runway. Configure the taxi patterns to and from the fueling stations to keep just a blast away from the people. Refer to the Department of Design Standard Design AW782429 Navy Definite Design number 1404000. Use the following decision criteria. Outside the limits prescribed to the clear air by the UFC 3-260-01 and UFC 3-260-02, located equipment above the ground concrete slab adjacent with the edge of the access apron with the fuel lane, ensuring the width of the slab and the location of equipment, including the panographic reach with respect to the pan, ramp, or apron. The fueling lane does not interfere with any part of the aircraft. This approach to the departure for the fueling station, equip the Army and Navy, the hot fueling station, and the emergency dry breaking away coupling. Limit the height of the equipment, included lighting, and on the slab to no more than 30 inches above the nominal grade. Contact the airfield manager additional clearance. Proper nominal maximum flow rate for each of the directing fuel station of 600 gallons per minute. They, however, the design system the delivery rate of 400 gallons per minute with a nozzle pressure of 35 psi gallons, and assure the adequate pumps design at 600 gallons per minute flow rate and general system design. Deliver 400 gallons per minute at 350 psi gallons. To have 35 psi gallons should now be as fully capable of delivering 600 gallons per minute with a nozzle pressure reading to 0 to 10 psi gallons. Affecting reeling rate. So the small aircraft range of 250 to 550 gallons per minute, since the actual fuel flow rate will vary with the nozzle back of the pressure varies, then necessary to limit the maximum nozzle pressure to 55 psi gallons at the skin of the aircraft to protect the aircraft from the issuing venture panographic is critical important component of the aircraft. The direct fueling system must be able to connect correctly simulate the nozzle pressure compensating for all the pressure looses up and include the fueling nozzle using the maximum rate number than required simultaneous refueling for the system sizing. Provide at least 2 fueling stations with the system side for the minimum flow rate of the 1,200 gallons. Where there are more 2 fuel stations is required, increase the total system rate by 600 gallons per minute. For every 3 additional fueling stations, see the service headquarters major command approval is required for the system exceeding 2,400 gallons per minute. However, the stations are not recommended to exceed 3,000 gallons per minute. Department of Defense 2 variation standards design fixed wing and small frame aircraft direct fueling station type 4 Department of Defense design AW78-2429 type 5 Department of Defense design AW78-2429 both the variation pantograph with the fuel of the aircraft type of F the same as the type 4 except for the refueling points are located with the hardened aircraft shelter. The type V the variation is also known as the inner shelter refueling. F the both housing and hose pantographs can be used with either type 4 and type 5 aircraft direct fueling system. Contact the service headquarters for the type pantograph to use the SANES 5877 pressure refueling nozzle on pantograph to equip the pantograph the Navy Marine Corps project of the 55 psi hose with the pressure regulators located just before the refueling nozzle. Return the Department of Defense standard design AW78-2429 the type 4 and type 5. Alright, 4423 large frame aircraft. Locate the aircraft direct fueling stations for the large aircraft transport, cargo planes, tankers, long range patrol planes, bombers, adjacent in the normal parking position. Use the following design criteria. Individual determine the number of the fuel stations required for each of the activity depends on the number of the large aircraft based on the activity number of the aircraft that will need to be fueling in transit to accommodate the fueling of the number of the aircraft with a given time, the span with moving them. More fueling stations are normally required that would actually be used at one time. Provide a flow rate criteria for the fueling station of 600 gallons per minute or 1,200 gallons per minute. The nozzle pressure of the section 600 gallons per minute or 1,200 gallons per minute is based on the aircraft contract major com for the guidance size combined system. The requirements multiples of 600 gallons per minute starts at the minimum of the flow rate of 1,200 gallons per minute up to a maximum flow rate of 240 gallons, 2,400 gallons per minute. Design the piping and the hydraulics material pump in accordance with the other paragraphs in this chapter. Large aircraft such as transport cargo planes could be fueled with the flush mounting hydrant pits. Preferred method of Air Force projects. The flood mounted hydrant pits are required to conform with the Department of Defense standard AW78-2428 Type 3 hydrant system. Panographics can be used with normal aircraft parking position, can be located with the adjacent end of the edge of the ramp fixed with long range. Pantographs have maximum reach of 135 feet. Use self-propelled hydrant hose with trucks. The Type 3 hydrant hose car, the detachable pantographic assemblies with the connection from the flush-mounted hydrant head to the aircraft. The necessary controls provided by the hydrant control valve with the hydraulic pneumatically actuated operated depending on the type of the mobile refueling equipment in order to ensure the control valve is always controlled and modulating the use of the able to protect the aircraft. Provided with a differential pressure pilot with a set point of 15 psi. Provided with the Navy fueling system. Agent with the hose end of the controllers inlet pressure of the aircraft's skin. F. Equipment pantographs in accordance with the Department of Defense standards design with incorporating the attaching pantographic in the design file, the USAFE and NATO specifications in which the swivel contains inline repairable rolling bearings. Additional included with the pantographs and such as part of the construction project. Normally, a pantographs required equals number of the simultaneous refuelings to be performed. Alright, G, the Air Force large frame aircraft directing fueling system is referred to as the Type 3 pressurized fueling system. The Type 3 fueling system, the constant pressure system, is standard. The hydrant fueling system, the large frame aircraft, is compromised with two operating storage tanks, a pump house, a hydrant loop with a hydrant at each of the parking position. The system is controlled with the two reduction PLCs, constantly with the pressurized when the operation of the fuel is pumped to the tank from the tanks through the filter separator and supply venturi to the hydrant loop. It flows to appropriate hydrant level. Valve with the hydrant searching vehicle mobile pantographic into the aircraft. Its refueling is underway. The back pressure control of the valve keeps the system pressure at the preset level to return the venturi measure flow back at the storage tank and working in conjunction with the venturi pumps and is returned often depending on the refueling requirement. The system is sized with 600 gallon per minute increments of 240 gallons per minute. 2,400 gallons per minute. Issue the pumps the size to provide with a minimum 100 psi at the outlet. Most distant hydrant adapted. Each of the hydrant pit control vehicle is operated with the control of the surge shutdown pilot, with the pilot controls the set of 45 psi for the gallon and 50 psi gallons, respective of the hydrant control valve. Although the nominal flow rates up to 900 gallons per minute using the 4-inch valve, with the nominal flow rates using the 12-inch. Nominal flow rates up to 1,200 gallons per minute using a 6-inch hose. Contact surface hydrant quarters for specific guidance sizing. The hydrant control valve referred to the Department of Defense Standards Design AW78-2428 for the Type 3 hydrant systems. Alright, 4424 helicopter. The most of the Department of Defense standard AW78-2429 Type 4. The using the following design critical direct fuel system for the helicopter design piping and pumps, the controls, the accessories, auxiliary systems, accordance with other applicable paragraphs of the chapter for each of the directing station provides a nominal maximum flow of 300 gallons. Designing system capable of delivering 275 gallons per minute with 300 psi gallons of the nozzle pressure for the minimum size of the 600 gallons per minute with at least two fueling systems for the diversity uses increases by 300 gallons per minute for every 3 additional fueling stations and outlying fields of the service headquarters approval. Single fuel station may be used, providing above ground direct fuel station equipped with identical fixed wiring, small frame aircraft fuel station design, horizontal position, vertical projection of fueling equipment to avoid interference with the helicopter blades when dropped in attitude, coordinated with the type of the pressure and refueling valve. The SA's AS5877 closed circuit with the end user. 4425 surface effective hovercraft. Turbine powered surface effective hovercraft can be fueled with the parking apron aircraft directing fuel using a 200 gallon per minute maximum fuel rating with a 300 psi gallon nozzle pressure for the fuel. Hardware components are similar to those required of the aircraft direct fueling. The JP5 with the overend fueling station so that the best generated turbine engine does not damage the directing fuel station components with referred to the Department of Defense Standard Design AW78-2429 Type 4. 443 Marine Loading Facilities, Chapter 5 of the UFC 45 Piping System. Wrote to Chapter 9 for the UFC for the information guidelines regarding piping system. 451 Production Segregation. Except for otherwise approved with the service headquarters, preventing contamination of aviation turbine fuels provided in separate receiving, storage, and distribution system for each product, except for otherwise approved with the service headquarters, prevent misfueling and transferring the type of the fuel other than intended with using the different sizes of the piping valves, adapters, and nozzles, etc. 4.6 Equipment description. The appropriate guide specification and indoor standard design will be provided with the specific information. The equipment selection make the provision of drain equipment maintenance provided with a hard pipe drain with the equipment holders pump more than 5 gallons of the fuel when the pipe which drains the product recovery tank is less than 12 feet of the equipment. 461 Bulk Air Eliminator. The flange connected with the steel body, the bulk and the air eliminator desired pressure flow of the rating of the applicable service requirement. They include the automatic release and release head of the unlocking equipment with the flow solenoid operated hydraulic operated diaphragm control valve with the provided discharge piping the product recovery tank or other safety means of containment. 462 The meters provide meters with a swivel mounted counter headed at least the truck full stand and an accommodated bearing truck in an operator position. 4621 meters positive displacement. Use flange connected to the chemical steel body, except for aluminum stainless steel. After the issue of the filter, separated positive displacement meters of the desired pressure for the flow, maintaining the applicable surface requirement. Ensure the meter has the drain in the register and provide temperature compensation, adjustable calibration capabilities with the custody of the transfer, and ensure the meter accessory with the capability with the either mechanical or electronic support equipment selected. Provide an accuracy plus of the minimum minus of the 0.5% when used for the custody transfer. Salt appropriate service headquarters with the requirement for the meter of the communicated with the remote location equipment to consider the use of the card operated with the key operated data acquisition system. Card keys operate appropriate with the code to identify the receiver for the fuel, allow the access of the fuel. The quantities taken with the transmitted of the data retrieving device, electronic pulse transmit mounted on each of the meter. Each transaction is automatically recorded. 4622 meters turbine using a flange connected with the same sealed body turbine meter with the design pressure flow rating applicable service requirement provided with the flow strainer. For the turbine meter, provides the straight length of the pipe with a minimum of 10 pipe diameters upstream with the 5 pipes meters diameters downstream with all the turbine meters as required by the manufacturer. Ensure the meter has the drain and register provided with the temperature compensation, adjustable calibration capabilities where there is custody, and transfer the ensure all supporting capability for the meter is compatible with the turbine meter selected, provided with the accuracy of the plus or minus 0.5% with the use of the custody transfer. Consult the appropriate service headquarters for the requirements of the meter communicated with the remote location of the equipment. Consider the use of the card operated with the key operated data acquisition system. The card keys are as appropriate as and are coded with identifying the receiver of the fuel to allow the access for the fuel. The quantities taken to be transmitted the data receiving device, electronic pulse transmitter mounted with each meter of each transaction is automatically recorded. Alright, 463 pressure and vacuum gauges. Use liquid gauges with the range of the dial size necessary but not less than 0 to 160 pounds per square inch. Pressure the range of the 4-inch diameter dial. Gauges are to be all stainless steel construction with a black graduation with a white face for the location and temperature exceeds 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Consult service headquarters for the direction and possible use of the gas-filled gauges. For location the temperature is less than negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit, use an appropriate gauge liquid that is not freeze to prevent damage of the gauging. Consider location year-round with other conditions, services, requirements, the type of the liquid filling to be used. Gauge liquids and service ranging. Glycerin is 0 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Silicone is negative 40 to 600 degrees Fahrenheit. Provide a lever-handed gauge, cock pressure snubber, and pressure gauge connection. Provide indicating record pressure gauges on suction discharge lines and terminal pipeline pumping stations on the incoming line of the delivery terminal on each such pipeline is required service headquarters. Pressure gauges should be installed so that they are testable without removing them from the piping. 464 strainers. Refer to requires strainer to protect the central figure plug unless peculiarly from the meeting with the net suction head of the pump. Whether or not the strainers are installed with the suction side of the central figure pumps. Research the spool speeds of the temporary strainers can be installed during the startup of the system. Strainers are required for the suction side of all the positive displacement pumps and meters and receipt filterization. So strainers are not required to upstrain the issue filter separate as diaphragm control valves. Also, use flange basket strainers with constructed steel and filtered with the remote baskets for the mono metal stainless steel mesh and large mesh reinforcements, provided with a quick opening single screw type with the drain connection in the bottom. Provided the fine screen mesh is a pump suction 7 mesh of 108 thousandths of an inch. Pump suctions at 16 thousandths of an inch. Receipt filterization 16 thousandths of an inch. Meter inlets uplands downstream of the filter set. Mesh of 40 is 16 thousandths of an inch. All cases ensure the effective screen of areas are not less than 3 times across the sectional area of the top of the pipe. Provided with the pressure gauge at the both sides of the strainer, differential type of the gauge across the strainer. 465 surge suppressors. Every effort should be made with the control of the hydraulic surge with the shock acceptable limited to the design with the pipe system rather than using the surge suppressor whether it is not possible or becomes extremely impractical. Surge suppressors may be incorporated with the diaphragm of the bladder type of the equipped with the top mounted liquid filled pressure gauge with a wafer style check valve with the bottom side drain above the check with the valve with the isolation valve provided with the need of the valve opening around with the check valve to permit the controlled black the lead of the black with a surge suppressor with the rebound located the surge suppressor as close as possible to the point of the shutoff. It is expected to close the shock and the surge suppressor can reduce the shock pressure but will not eliminate the entire preferred solution. The hydraulic shock and conservative pipeline design use of loops and slow closing valves. Surge suppressors are strictly large and result in solutions and require approval of service headquarters prior to design in the system. All right, 466 filter separator is the common aviation term. Common aviation turbine fuel contaminants are water solids, sufficient surfactants, microorganisms, miscellaneous contaminants. So the contaminants are generally those which are insoluble. Fuel most common are iron, rust, scale, and sand and dirt. However, the metal particles, dust, line, and filter material, the rags, gasket, and places, even in the sludge producing by bacterial action are included. Maximum amount of size and solids in aircraft can vary by the aircraft type of the fuel system, closed tolerance, mechanism, turbine age. Engines can be damaged with particles in small 1/20th of the diameter of the human air. The filter separator continues to remove the dirt-free water from the aviation turbine fuels. Ensure the design requirements of two separate filterizations prior to the fuel reaching the refueler truck, fuel standing hydrant pit, and aircraft direct fueling station. 4661 design requirements. All aviation turbine fuels are pumped into the operating tank must be passed through the filter separator provided with the filter separator of the discharge line in the operating storage tank. Filter separator is required to all the aviation turbine fuel systems and facilities where it is dispensed directly to the aircraft and loaded with on refuelers, though they eventually dispense the fuel to the aircraft. As a minimum, such facilities provided with the filter separator as follows. Design and construct filter separators in accordance with the EL specification 1581 edition. 5 elements filter separators shall meet the standard size described in the DESC XP2. Provide with the horizontal filter separator. Provide the vertical filter separator only when the space contributes to the problem. And with the horizontal units, provide the access at least one side of each of the vertical unit with the V of the separate. No attached filter separator stand alone to the fixed platform. Alright, design the construction of the filter separator in accordance with the American Society of Mechanical Engineer, boiler, and pressure vessel codes. Conduct it and construct the metal parts in contact with the fuel, including the shell head and the internal attachments to 3003-5083 aluminum alloy. The Air Force also allows the interior epoxy coated carbon steel, including the following accessories: piston type differential pressure gauge with 1 psi graduation across the element. Pressure gauge shall be testable without removal through the piping, slide glass with the water sump, the hydraulic operated with the diaphragm control valve, and the main discharging pump. Piping the rate of flow of the water sludge features include the manual check of the mechanism, external end filter separator to check the flow. The water sludge features the must not include the pipeline, barge, tanker, or receipt lines. In those cases, the use of differential pressure alarm and a differential pressure actuated bypass valve. 4. On the barge, receiving location where the large quantities of water are accepted, automatic water drain valve connected to the bottom of the water sump. 5. Manual water drain valve at the bottom of the water sump. Safety relief valve in accordance with the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, boiler pressure vessel code, thermo 7 thermal relief. 8. Automatic air release of the check valve. 9. Basket strainers upstream, all receipt filter separators. 10. Connecting auto water drains, manual drains, thermal relief valves, air release permanently installed with the product recovery track. Tank is described in Chapter 8 of the UFC. The fuel sample point is the upstream, downstream. E. Do not provide sight glasses or sight flow indicators on the draining pipe. The pressure of the relieving the valves. Do not allow the sight flows indicators to be installed on a filtration device. Do not allow the reverse flow through the filter separator. Any of the filterization devices provide means for the slow fill with the vessels necessary to avoid the static building up during the filling of the separator. Filter and separator, Department of Defense Design, AW782429, or sorry, it's AW782428, gives the detailed design feature. Arrangement. The arranging the system piping so that the fuel is discharged side of the fueling system, the transfer pump, the recirculated back through the inlet filter separators into the operating storage tank. The inlet filter separators may also serve the one operating storage tank and aircraft direct fueling system on the downstream side of the operating storage tanks. Arranged with the piping the fuel to be circulated with the operating storage tank through the filter separator to each of the aircraft fixed with a fueling station back through the inlet filter separator. Operating storage tank provided with the dispensing filter separator of the same number of the capacity as the transfer pumps, that is 3 600-gallon per minute filter separators. The pumps 367-1 design requirements. Designing pumps to deliver the full range of operation condition anticipated with the facility flow rates presented with this chapter. Ensure the pumps deliver the sufficient head to overcome the friction, static head losses in the system at the rated flow. Consider specific gravity, temperature, viscosity, vapor pressure, corrosive solvent, properties of the fuel. Provided at least 2 pumps to each of the aviation turbine fuel system for any single grade of the fuel connect pump the parallel, selecting according to the type of the most stable most suitable for the particular application. Do not use positive displacement reciprocating pumps for product issue pipeline transfer. Provide separate pumps for each type of the aviation turbine fuel. Provide at least two transfer pumps, each capable of delivering required system capacity. 46272 central figure pumps. The AP standard 610 central figure pumps to pump above ground tanks to continuously flooded sections. 4673 vertical turbine pumps. Using the API standard 610, the vertical turbine pump to pump the underground tanks. Do not use the horizontal transfer pump to put alongside the underground tank to provide with the foot valve of the vertical turbine pumps of the Navy and USAFE projects. 4674, the rotary pump. Using sliding the vane with the positive displacement pumping the self to priming the central figure pump for the application, strapping the pipeline similarly surface of the pump. There may be the frequent loss of its prime for these pumps provided with a pressure relieving valve located on the discharge side of the pump. The variable speed of the motor can be used by positive displacement to gradually bring up the pump to normal operating speed. Note that on positive displacement pump, the pressure valve shall be considered the safety relief valve. No operating valves. The valves modulate on a normal basis to maintain the setup pressure. The use of the relief valve to maintain modulate pump discharge pressure voids with the pump warranty. Alright, 4675 drivers. Drive permanently installed pump to the electrical motor with the properly classified in accordance with the NFPA 70 size driver shall be not overloaded at any point on the curve, provided anti-reversing ratchets on all vertical turbine pumping motors. 4676 material construction. Aviation turbine requiring cast steel, monocular iron casting, steel stain, impellers, trims considered non-ferrous materials, and surface corrosive environmental consult service headquarters. 4677 installation. Mount permanently installed pumps in substantial foundation reinforcing concrete and designed in accordance with the Hydraulic Institute standards. 468 valves. 4681 material construction. Aviation turbine fuel service. A valves material in contact with aviation turbine fuels shall either be stainless steel, chrome plated with the carbon electroless, nickel plated with the carbon steel. Do not allow zinc and zinc coated copper bearing material in contact with the fuel. Do not allow internal epoxy coated valves. Required manual valve in aviation turbine fuel systems. They have stainless steel body. The bonnets of the carrying steel body of the valve are permitted to provide with the internal and lead plated with the nickel plating. Do not allow aluminum cast iron bronze body valve. The use of API for fire safety valves. 4682 isolation valve types. The double block beating isolation valves. Use the separation product serve the tank shell connection with the pipe going above below the ground between the period of the tank of the charge storage at other locations. Critical pressure type of the piping plug valves. Double block and bleed. Use the double seat of the tapper to lock up the plug type of the valve with the blood body bleeded between the seats and double block bleed. Valves should be designed for the means of synthetic pressure seating material burned out of the fire. The metal seat will remain in effective closure of complying with the API 607 standard. Lubricated plug valves are not allowed, including integral body cavity and thermal relief valve. Alright, 3 ball valve, double block bleed. The double seat of the true and mounted lockable ball type valves of the body bleed between the seats of the double block bleed. These will be very rarely used when they are acceptable as an alternative to double block and bleed plug valves in an application, but the valve is operated with very infrequently. An example of the isolation valve pits where they are only to perform pressure with the testing of the pitting of the valve should be designed so that the synthetic seating of the material is burned out of the fire. The metal remain effective closure, comply with the API standard 607, the integral body of the cavity of the thermal relief valve. Gate valves. 4 gate valves, double block and bleed. Use the double seated lockable gate type valve. The body bleed between the seats of the double block of the bleed. This will very rarely used. They are acceptable alternative to double block and bleed plug. The double block and bleed valves will not physically fit. Valves shall be designed so that the synthetic seating of the material is burned out with the fire. The metal seat will remain in effective closure of the comply with the API standard 607. Single seated with the gate valves are not allowed, including integral body cavity thermal relief valve. B. Quick opening, frequent opening isolation valves used for the less critical application with the double block and bleed shutoff is not required. Ball valves, ball type lockable valves designed so that the synthetic seating of the material is burned off and out in a fire, and the metal to metal seat will remain effective. The closure comply with the API standard 607. The Teflon done synthetic seals of the sealing of the material using the full port valves where line picking is required. If and when the 10 pipe diameters upstream, the 5 pipe diameters downstream of a flow pressure with the control valve with the flowing device, such as the venturi, and the valve should be complied with the API standard 608. Butterfly valve with a high-performance water trunnion butterfly type of the valve designed so that the synthetic seating of the material burned out of the fire of the metal seat will remain in effect. Closure should comply with the API standard 607. The Teflon, Viton, synthetic seals and seating material used in the valve and the high-performance type of the eccentric disc shaft clamping action to bubble tight to shut off. Provide only the inlet and the truck fill standing on supply return rise to the aircraft direct filling station. Fusible link to the release at 165 degrees. The valves are not required, not permitted with the on Air Force projects. Use full port valves with the exact same diameter of the pipe with the picking as required. Isolation valve operators provide manually operated valves, non-specifically remote automatic emergency operation, but use the geared operators for the ball, the double block and bleed larger than 6 inches, double block and bleed gate and ball and double block and bleed specified with remote automatic emergency services may electrical motor operators, if approved with the service headquarters, provide blocking tabs of the isolation valves to allow padlock to be used to lock out during the maintenance, provided with the chain operators on the valves, which are located 72 inches higher above the grade. 4684 isolation valve. The location provided the isolation valve, the product piping the system to control the flow to permit the isolation of equipment, maintenance with the repair, provided additional valves requiring location necessary to conduct the valid hydrostatic tests. Required manually operated valves except for the motor operators specifically authorized applicable standards drawing the technical specification use double dock and bleed type of the isolation valve for the separation product services on tank shells connection to ASTs over 12,000 gallons only. When piping goes above the below the ground between the pier and the tank storage with other locations critical to periodic pressure testing, piping, the quick opening and the frequent opening and the type of the isolation valve that may be used for the less critical application where the double block and bleed shut off is required. A minimum requirements provided with the isolation valve the following of the locations. Provided the double block and bleed valve when the piping that goes below and above the ground where requires periodic piping. The testing all surfaces above the ground piping the connection to the storage tanks on each of the branch line with the pipe and point of the connection of the main product of the pipeline in the header. On the product pipeline, the header just before the line and leaves the pumping in the station. E is on the suction side of the discharge of each of the pumping units, except for the suction side of the vertical central fuel pumps installed with the underground tanks. F at all aircraft fuel dispensing points. G on an inlet and outlet connection, each line of the strainer filter separator, meter diaphragm control valve with the other equipment that requires periodic servicing. One inlet valve with one outlet valve may be used to isolate more than one piece of the adjacent equipment with the air connected in series. On the above ground piping, each of the tanker car, tanker truck with the offloading connection, the requirement does not apply to the gravity offloading unless the isolation valve is specifically caused by the applicable drawings on the above ground piping attached to the refueler loading connection at critical points while the pumping is the runways, the roadways, and taxways. Alright, 4685 isolation valve pits. Provided with fiberglass concrete pits with the rolling and high hinge cover the design in accordance with the Department of Standards AW 78248828 with isolation valves installed with a non-traffic area of the underground fuel system design valve pits. Valve operation for the valve that can be operated with the personnel without confined space and entry. 49 other valves and except for the diaphragm control valve. 491 check valves. Use the check valves to prevent backflow for the pump, the branch lines, meters, and other locations to run back of the reverse flow must be avoided. The check valves may be on the swinging disc or global dual plate hinged disc, spring-loaded, poppet, ball, or diaphragm actuated type. Use the check of the soft seat of the non-slamming type of the renewable seats of the disc. Ensure the check valves conform with the API spec 6D. The non-surge check valve diaphragm control valve the flow feature for the discharge of all the pumps. When all the non-surge check diaphragms the control valve of the pump discharge, consider the use of the spring type, the water check before the diaphragm valve to prevent the sudden flow of the reversal during the shutdown of the packing. Sink back through the pump before the diaphragm control valve with the diaphragm chamber that is filled with the reaction and closing the valve. 4692 thermal relief. Provide thermal relief valves around the isolation check with the valves to relieve the excessive pressure caused the thermal expansion of the liquid trap between the shutoff points. See facilities plate 023, 024, 025, and 026. Alright, your diaphragm controlled valve, the hydraulically operated single-seated with global type of the diaphragm actuated valve to use extensive fuel system as control valve. These valves consist of the main valve, the pilot control system valve operated with varying the amount of pressure of the valve, the diaphragm since the chamber above the diaphragm exposed with the greater air of the diaphragm chamber pressure than the area of the disc exposed to the line pressure with the equal pressure in the chamber. The pipeline results with the greater force being applied to the top of the disc. The force of the disc against the seat before closing the valve by selecting power per pilot control system. These valves can be used in the enormous way with the control flow pressure and level fueling systems. 4610-1, open and close operation. The most basic function of hydraulic operated with the diaphragm control valve. The operation is accomplished by applying pressure with the diaphragm to close the valve, to relieve the pressure to allow the applying pressure to open the valve with the pilot trim used to perform the operation of a three-way valve, which can be controlled by the solenoid, hand pressure, the pressure differential, or flow. All right, 4610-2. Throttle operation. This method controlling hydraulically operated diaphragm control valve. In the case of the very valve that modulates any degree of opening, the response change with the throttle connection with the throttle control reacts with the pressure of the pressure differential in the main valve with the pressure differential across the orifice plate to regulate the position of the disc. Main valve. For the main proper operation, the valve should be installed with a straight pipe with both sides of the 10 pipe with the diameters upstream of the side of the 5 stream. 5 diameters in its diameter downstream is sufficient with the provided with the fuel port with the manual isolation valve that they are placed in limits. 4610-3 check valve function. The unique function of the control valve. This is the main valve. The outlet pressure with the connected with the diaphragm control cover. This is the downstream outlet pressure exceeds the inlet pressure. Normally holds the valve open, but the valve will close to prevent backflow. Note that in order for the valve to close, it must be backflow sometimes in substantial amount of time. Consider putting the regular check in the series of the valve in case of the where is concerned. 4610-4 remote operations. Hydraulically operated diaphragm control valve that can be operated remotely. This is accomplished by installing tubing from the point of pressure sensing of the valve and then using the remote control solenoids within the trim. 4610-5 material construction using stainless steel, pilot stainless steel, little tubing used of the body bonnets covered in made of the stainless steel internal plate of the chrome steel and internal plate nickel and modular iron. Provided with the Viton, Buna and diaphragm disc ring enclosure, all electrical apparatus according to the classification of the area in which they are installed, provided the means of the wire to seal adjustable pilots do not use the aluminum valve. Alright, 4610-6, application of the fuel system, hydraulically operated diaphragm control valve. If the following applications refer to specific chapters in application: water slug off shut off, rate of flow control, pressure reduction, pressure relief, liquid level control, non-surge check control, deadman control, electrical block control. 410-7, a combination of these controls is possible. Typically used if the control is on the filter separated water slug shut off with the rate of the flow of the control. 4611, fuel hose. Use the size required for the design flow rate for the hose flange and the nipples. Use the carbon, steel, brass, except for the aviation turbine fuel issue. Points as use the brass, stainless steel, and aluminum where the metal parts contact the fuel. 4611, the loading fuels and loading fuel and hose with the pressure loading the hose connection complying with the EL standard 1529. The 4611-12, offloading the fuel hose that provided lightweight, flexible, non-pressurized offloading hose constructed with a nitrile rubber, rigid polyvinyl chloride or PVC helix, synthetic braiding of the synthetic smooth pore corrugated out of the diameter, provided non-pressure hose with a 65 psi rating in the 72 degrees Fahrenheit or 27 degrees hydrogen vacuum rating. 47 controls. Design requirements. Automatic controls in the facility may be including the temperature, pressure of the fuel valve, the pump, the controls, automatic fuel control, alarms, limit switches, motor operated isolation valve, solenoid, pilot actuated diaphragm control valves, the remote system condition indicators, other forms of automatic controls are remote meter indication, electronic access control, data logging, application computer techniques based of the selection, advanced automation, telemetry systems on the study of a particular application with the consideration of possible economic justification, operational and security requirements. 472, the flow. Is it possible to achieve the flow rates with exceeding the equipment range provided with the adjustable flow rate of the diaphragm control valve outlet connection each of the meter with the filter separated the diaphragm control valve control with the pressure differential across the orifice plate and the valve with the venturi and the main line with the necessary of the provided with the remote operated valve and the storage tank inlet outlet lines, suction and discharge transfer pumps, transfer lines and fuel piers to other locations. 473, pumping the controls. Operation pump suction discharge valve may be part of the automatic sequence of the starting the central figure pump, the shutting it down remotely, locally, and by the protective shutdown device. Remotely operated the valve on the discharge side of the pump may be either motor operated or solenoid pilot type of the hydraulic operated diaphragm control valves. Remote the control valves on the suction side of the pump can be motor operated valves only. Equip these valves with green and red open and closed, indicating lights for push and control locations. Consider the use of the PLC. More complicated systems. 4731 all pumps provided with the following controls: a key and auto button to each of the pump, the key hand off auto switch motor starter with each of the remotely operated pump. Both devices will use the same key. B indicator lights the control station to give the positive indication such that the lamp is operating when it's not energized. Use the push to the S type single light of the arm indicated with the pump of the pump familiar with the pump is controlled automatically. Reduce the voltage starting in the required electrical utility supplier. In all the cases, the pump the motor is greater than 50 horsepower. All vertical pumps. Emergency fuel shut-off flush button between 100 to 200 feet of the pump. Expected the ingress and egress direction maintained with the contacts provided with the initial emergency fuel shut-off button. Push buttons at point of the fuel delivery receipt, the tank piers and fill stands, etc. Use the same spacing and location requirements. U4732 multiple function pumps. Multiple function pumps are typically used as small facilities designed and arranged to be able to perform different functional functions such as fuel loading and offloading. Transfer depending on how the valves are aligned, provided with each of the function with the control system requirements for each of the function described each elsewhere with the chapter for each of the multiple tasks provided with the manual selector for which to choose to do which the section instead of the controls is set points of the pumps is to look at when performing the particular function. 4733, the transfer pump comparable transfer pump supply the issuing facility with its varying blending and flowing rates may be sequenced automatically. Flow seasoning the sequence. The equipment lead pumps can be started with the push button at issuing the facility automatically by the pressure switch and actuated to decrease system pressure. It might be caused by the opening the valve of the issuing facility with the method of the method requires the system to be repressurized at all times, normally incorporated with the type of 3 hydrant design and incorporated with the following control system: automatically control pump with the emergency stop buttons, lock key, reset the issuing station of the central supervisor control station, automatically shut off the transfer pumps on the lost selection of the no flow with more than 3 minutes on upon automatic shut off. Corresponding alarm with the central supervisor control station is activated. 4734 pipeline hose for the pumps over 150 horsepower provide the protection shutdown device for the alarm to the central supervisor control station in the event of the following: high pump is the temperature due to the black discharge, excessive pump vibration, mechanical seal and packing gland failure, high discharge pressure and loss of discharge pressure, excessive motor vibration, high motor to winding temperature, electrical interlocks with the preventing starting of the pump, and certain key valve seatings that are not correct, which cause the pump shutdown, and the key valve seating is changed loose with the pump suction pressure, high ring temperature and loss of cooling water flow. 4.8 canopies. 481 canopies to protect fixed assets, unless otherwise directed. Service headquarters provide for the canopy to protect fixed facilities, assets, equipment from the elements. Fixed facilities and equipment included, but are not limited to pump pads, fertilization pads, meter pads, isolation valve pads, tank structure, offloading and loading equipment pads, control panels, and electrical panel, motor control centers. Ensuring the structural design in accordance with the UFC 1200-01 and UFC 301-01. Canopies reducing storm weather do not provide the canopy to preclude the rain from reaching the contaminant and are less than required with the federal, state, and local regulations economically justified with the reducing the size of the concrete remote spill contamination spill training treatment system, and if directed with the service headquarters at the canopy over the tank of the truck, the tanker car loading and offloading containment area, ensuring the outside underside of the canopy is high enough to provide operator headroom for the walking on the top of the truck of the car, ensuring the structural design in accordance with the UFC 1200-01, UFC 303-1. Fuel additives provide storage facilities with the store aviation turbine fuels with the equipment to inject the fuel additives. Directive of the service headquarters will require the proportional injector of the main and will bypass storage additive the recirculation of the tank through the pipe of the injector if the additives for the corrosive characteristics construction system, including storage tank appearances, pumps as required, pumping associated fittings, valves, and injector assemblies, stainless steel components, consulting service headquarters for the guidance of which additives must be included. 491 plus 100 additives. Additives used to raise the thermal stability of jet fuel minimum of 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Also sufficient surfactants that will disable the water removal properties of the filter separately to meet the requirements of EAI specification 1581 edition 5. Because of the fuel contaminating thermal stability, additive is used with the design air base of the major common fuel engineer of the USAF air base, the Auto Air Petroleum Officer, the Army Airfield Navy Air System Command, the Air 4445, the USMC stations provide with the direction of air to those bases where they're permitted with the guidance concerning the location of additive injection equipment and additive storage facilities. Alright, 410 defueling and returning to bulk system. The general criteria: the acceptable location to defueling to return to bulk systems include the return line in a truck to the fill stand, return line with the hydrant hose to the checkout station, return line to the panographic flush station, the productive recovery tank, and a truck offloading station. 410 JP5 systems, JP10-21 hydrant systems, because degradation of the flashpoint between minimum JP5 requirement can occur when other JP5 is defueled with the aircraft directly. Operating tanks ensure that the JP5 direct fuel system are not capable of defueling the aircraft. With the hydrant system operating in the storage, defuel the aircraft with the mobile tanker vehicles into and fix the dedicated defuel tanks. 410.2.2 Other. Do not provide capability to fuel the JP5 refueler truck and be back to the storage unless the directed by the service headquarters. JP5 system does not use the fuel Bowser's mobile defuel tanks. 410.3 JP8 systems, JP31 hydrant system, hydrant loop. The JP8 hydrant system with the capable defuel aircraft back in the hydrant system, the operating storage through the hydrant pit, the diaphragm control valve. To 410.3, the hydrant system operated to allow the defueling, refueling, refuelers trucks provided with the return to the bulk station on the return line of the hydrant housing truck of the checkout station, panographic checkout station, panographic flushing station. Provide one adapter per group. Tanker truck and the tanker car offloading to allow refueling and refueler trucks to provide with the return to bulk station, provided with the military standard MS-24484 aircraft refueling adapter at a tanker truck of the tanker car offloading station. Provided one adapter per group of the tanker car and tanker car offloading truck station. Defueling the product recovery tank do not bypass the level control valve. 410.3.4 refueler truck fill stands to follow the defueling of the refueler trucks to provide with the return to the bulk station, provided with military standard MS-24484 aircraft refueling adapter at the point of the upstream to receive the filterization. When the fill stand has used the return line, provided one adapter per group of the refueler truck fill stand defueling into a product recovery tank do not bypass the level control valve. All right, 410.3.5 fuel Bowsers and mobile defective tanks provided with the capability of the empty the JP8 fuel Bowser tank. The fuel tanks provided with the gravity to give drain connection. Underground product recovery tanks provided with the pump above ground. Product recovery tanks do not base on the product recovery tank lever control valve. 411 product recovery system provided the system pumps and the piping valve the tanks collected the store using the aviation turbine fuel, which otherwise becomes waste. Operational maintenance activities. 411 tip 1 tanker trucks and fuel Bowsers provided with the capability to receive the fuel JP8 tanker truck. The JP8 fuel Bowsers include into the product recovery tank, either the product recovery tank location truck, fuel stand, other connection at the fuel receipt facility. 411.2 return to the bulk provided with the capability of returning aviation turbine fuel to the JP5 JP8 product recovery tank back into the operating storage, pumping the fuel with the seat pumping upstream in the recipient filterization. 4 table 4.1 aviation turbine fuel receipts filterization table pump pipeline marine and truck and rail descriptions provided strainer upstream continued. Chapter 5 Marine Receiving and Dispensing Facilities.